Have you ever wondered how a small, almost forgotten frontier principality, wedged between collapsing empires and rival warlords, rose to dominate 3 continents for more than 6 centuries? The rise of the Ottoman Empire is not merely a tale of conquest. It is a story of adaptability, political intelligence, religious legitimacy, military innovation, and leaders who understood that power was built as much through institutions as through the sword. Welcome to Echoes of Times. Today we journey back to the late 13th century, to the rugged borderlands of Anatolia, where a minor Turkic clan laid the foundations of one of the most enduring empires in world history. If you enjoy deep, historically rich explorations of the past, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a journey through time. To understand the rise of the Ottomans, we must first understand the world they emerged from. By the late 1200s, Anatolia was a land in turmoil. The once powerful Seljuk Sultanate of Rum had collapsed under pressure from Mongol invasions. Central authority had disintegrated, leaving behind a patchwork of small Turkish principalities known as Beylik's siege, competing for land, followers, and legitimacy. To the west stood the Byzantine Empire, a shadow of its former self. Constantinople still stood, but Byzantine authority in Anatolia had weakened dramatically. Border regions were poorly defended, plagued by internal strife, and vulnerable to raids. These frontier zones, known as UC Regions B, became fertile ground for ambitious warlords. It was here, around 1299, that a leader named Osman ibn Ertugrul emerged. Osman was not born into greatness. His domain consisted of a few villages near St. bordering Byzantine territory. Yet Osman possessed qualities that would prove decisive: charisma, strategic patience, and an ability to attract loyal followers. In a world where authority was fragile, reputation mattered more than titles. Osman positioned himself as a Ghazia warrior fighting on the frontier against non-Muslim powers. This identity was powerful. It gave religious legitimacy to warfare, attracted fighters seeking land and honor, and framed expansion as both material and spiritual success. But Osman was not reckless. Rather than launching large, risky campaigns, he focused on gradual expansion. He targeted isolated Byzantine fortresses, disrupted supply lines, and absorbed territory piece by piece. These victories were strategic, not random. Control of land meant control of agriculture, trade routes, and population centers. Just as importantly, Osman showed pragmatism in governance. Christians under his rule were often allowed to retain their land, religion, and local customs in exchange for loyalty and taxation. This reduced resistance and encouraged stability, a pattern that would become central to Ottoman success. By the time of Osman's death around 1326, his small frontier Beylik had transformed into a durable state. More crucially, he had created a ruling tradition that balanced warfare with administration, a legacy his successors would expand dramatically. Osman's son Orhan inherited more than land; he inherited a vision. Orhan's reign marked the transition of the Ottomans from a tribal principality into a structured state. One of Orhan's most important achievements was the capture of Bursa in 1326. This was no ordinary city. Bursa was wealthy, strategically located, and economically vital. Its fall shocked the Byzantine world and announced the Ottomans as a permanent power. Bursa became the first Ottoman capital, and with it came transformation. Orhan introduced formal administration, taxation systems, and legal institutions. Coins were minted in his name. Religious foundations were established. Mosques, markets, and public buildings reshaped the city into a symbol of Ottoman authority. Orhan also understood that conquest alone was insufficient. He married strategically, forged alliances, and incorporated Byzantine knowledge into Ottoman governance. Rather than destroy existing systems, he adapted them, particularly in military organization and siege warfare. During his reign, the Ottomans also crossed into Europe for the first time, exploiting Byzantine civil wars to gain a foothold in Thrace. This marked a turning point. The empire was no longer confined to Anatolia. It was becoming a transcontinental power. One of the most decisive factors in Ottoman expansion was military reform. Under Murad I, Orhan's successor, the Ottomans created one of the first standing armies in Europe since Roman times. At the heart of this force were the Janissaries, elite infantry units trained, salaried, and loyal directly to the Sultan. Unlike feudal levies, they were disciplined professionals. Over time, they They became one of the most feared military units in the world. Murad also institutionalized the timur system, granting land revenues to cavalry officers in exchange for military service. This tied economic stability directly to military readiness, ensuring the empire could mobilize quickly and efficiently. Under Murad's leadership, the Ottomans expanded deep into the Balkans, capturing key cities and defeating regional powers. The Battle of Kosovo in 1389, though costly, confirmed Ottoman dominance in southeastern Europe. Crucially, Murad governed a multi-religious empire with care. Christians and Jews were organized into autonomous communities, allowed to govern their own religious affairs while remaining loyal to the Ottoman state. This balance between authority and tolerance reduced rebellion and increased longevity. The capture of Adrianople in the 1360s was another watershed moment. Declared the new capital, Adorn placed the Ottomans at the gateway to Europe. From here, they could launch campaigns into the Balkans with speed and coordination. European courts began to take notice. Reports spoke of an army that was disciplined, methodical, and relentless. Unlike many medieval conquerors, the Ottomans did not simply raid and withdraw, they stayed, governed, and integrated. This permanence was revolutionary. Under Osman I, known as Yildirim, the Thunderbolt Ottoman expansion accelerated dramatically. Osman subdued rival Turkish beyliks in Anatolia and expanded aggressively in the Balkans, even threatening Constantinople itself. Osman strengthened central authority, reduced the independence of regional rulers, and improved infrastructure. Roads, bridges, and markets connected distant provinces, binding the empire economically as well as militarily. Yet rapid expansion carried risks. In 1402, Bayezid faced Timur, the Central Asian conqueror. At the Battle of Ankara, the Ottomans suffered a devastating defeat. Bayezid was captured, and the empire plunged into crisis. For many states, this would have been the end. What followed is one of the most remarkable recoveries in imperial history. Despite civil war and fragmentation, Ottoman institutions endured. Administrative systems, military traditions, and political culture survived the catastrophe. Within decades, the empire reunited under strong leadership. Lessons were learned. Authority was centralized further. The state emerged stronger, more cautious, and more sophisticated. This resilience, this ability to absorb disaster and adapt, became one of the defining traits of Ottoman rule. By the early 15th century, the Ottomans controlled Anatolia, the Balkans, and vital trade routes between Europe and Asia. Their empire was not built solely on conquest, but on ideas. Legitimacy through religion, governance through law, loyalty through opportunity. They ruled not as temporary conquerors, but as long-term administrators. Local customs were respected, religious communities were protected, taxes were standardized, justice was institutionalized. The conquest of Constantinople still lay ahead, but the foundations had already been laid by generations of visionary leaders. The rise of the Ottoman Empire teaches us that history is shaped not only by battles, but by patience, strategy, and adaptability. Osman's frontier leadership, Orhan's state-building, Murad's reforms, and Bayezid's ambition all played essential roles. Empires do not emerge overnight. They are built decision by decision, generation by generation. So what mattered most in the Ottoman rise leadership? Military innovation or resilience in the face of disaster? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Echoes of Times as we continue uncovering the stories that shaped our world. History does not fade, it echoes.